All right, good morning and welcome to a championship edition of Fantasy El Dente. As always, joined by Umar and Josh. Gentlemen, happy Sunday.
Thanks,
Happy
Ryan.
Sunday to
Thanks.
both of you guys. Yes.
Yeah, how's the outlook looking today? Are you both in a few championships or at least one?
I'm in one. I'm in one in my startup year one dynasty league. So excited about
Oh,
that.
Love it.
nice.
Love it. Umar, you?
I think we might have talked about this, but my leagues are set up differently.
Mm-hmm.
So the playoffs started this week. So one league I made the playoffs, the other league I did not, unfortunately. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Next week is the championship round. So
Okay. Well, good luck. Yeah, I'm in one championship today as well. And my other league, I got knocked out last week by that abysmal Browns Broncos game that I had three players going and
no.
just no offensive production. So that did me in. But hey, I'm still in one, so we're looking okay.
Nice.
Well, welcome to the show. Those of you listening out there, good luck to all of you. How we do it, we're going to run through some DFS lineups. Anyone out there that does DFS on DraftKings, so we'll give you our optimal lineups, hopefully win you some cash today. And then we'll get into some start and sits, just run through the positions that we like, and then we'll get to some live questions from you guys. So let's jump right into it. Let's take a look at our scoreboard. Josh has a commanding lead. You know what's sad is I won week one. I won the first time we did this, and I have not won since. So Umer's come up strong the last two, and Josh is there with four. So good job, fellas, making me look bad. Josh, go ahead and break down your lineup that is up on the screen right now.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. So I'm going to start right out at quarterback, and I'm paying down this week. I'm going to go with Nick Foles. He's so cheap, such a cheap option at 4,700 on DraftKings, and really, when you're picking players, especially quarterback, you're looking for like 2x or 3x performance on their value. So at 4,700, I mean, Foles only really needs to get 10 to 12 points to hit value, and I expect him to get at least that or more. So I think he's an easy call this week. Save a lot of money there, so we can pay up later. For running back, I'm going to go with Mark Ingram and Marlon Mack. Again, save a little bit of money at running back because I'm really trying to get. I don't want any weak spots in my lineup this week. It's week 16. Some teams are really pushing to make playoff runs and secure first round buys or their divisions. And some other players are out completely. Like for example, Cam Newton's out. So how does that impact McCaffrey? And Todd Gurley may or may not play. As of now, he's supposed to play, but how much he'll play, we don't know. So some of these top players, real big question marks coming into this week, especially at running back. So I'm going to pay down. I'm going to do Marlon Mack. He had a great week last week. He's going against a weak defense in the Giants. He should be fine. Mark Ingram against Pittsburgh. He's a little hit or miss, but Drew Brees has not been his normal self lately. So I expect them to lean on the run game. Some short passes to Ingram, Kamara. Kamara's just a little too expensive for me, so I went Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
At receiver, this is where we're finally paying up, getting some big name guys. I'm going DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, and Robert Foster, surprisingly. Hopkins and Adams, I mean, they've been the hallmarks of consistency this year. Depending on your league format, Adams been the number one receiver in PPR. He's so consistent. Hopkins, I mean, what more can we say about him? He's amazing. Robert Foster, over the past few weeks, he's had like 70 yards every game for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. I mean, he's become Josh Allen's go-to option. So I don't even consider that, necessarily going down and finding a guy that I'm hoping for, even though it only costs 4,900. He's been great. He's been consistent. He should be up there. He should be costing 6,000, 7,000. I couldn't believe he was only 4,900. So I went with him as my wide receiver
Mm-hmm.
three. At tight end, not messing around. Zach Ertz, not even screwing around with these lower end tight ends. I saved some money at quarterback so that I could have Zach Ertz. For my flex, Robbie Anderson, I expect that to be a shootout in the Green Bay Jets game. So I have the top receiver for both teams in Adams and Anderson, and hopefully that pays off. DST, I'm going with the Falcons. They had a huge week last week out of nowhere, surprised some people. And this week they're going against Carolina with no Cam Newton. Easy call for me. They're one of the cheapest defenses on the slate, and I don't expect Carolina to do much of anything outside of Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that will be an interesting game to watch. We actually have quite a few similar players, but I'll get to mine in a second. Go ahead and give us a breakdown of yours.
That Falcons defense, that was an interesting call. But hey, you're ahead for a reason, so I'm not gonna argue with you. Going through my roster, Baker Mayfield versus the Bengals, he's really come on as they're mathematically still in the playoff chase for, to make that sixth seed or whatever. So he's really putting the Browns on his shoulder and really leading them in these crucial games. So against the Bengals, yeah, they're a weak opponent, and I expect him to do pretty well. Running backs, I got Dalvin Cook. He had a career game last week. Ever since they made that change at offensive coordinator, switching out John DeFilippo over Kevin Stefanski. Um, Career numbers for him 132, I believe, for 2 scores. I expect him to do similar damage against the Lions. Should really run amok on them. Chris Carson versus the Chiefs is my running back. I mean, Chris Carson and that Seattle running game is the best in the league right now. I mean, they're one of the only teams that are a run first, having more running plays compared to passing plays. So that offense runs through Chris Carson and the other running backs. But Chris Carson has definitely separated himself as the number one back in that backfield. I expect him to do damage against a poor Chiefs running defense. Wide receivers, Julian Edelman versus the Bills. I mean, we all learned about the news of Josh Gordon being suspended. That totally rises the stock for Julian Edelman and the other Patriots receivers. I expect him to do really well against the Bills. Allen Robinson versus the 49ers. I know Allen Robinson has been very inconsistent as far as his play this whole season, but against the 49ers, they got a very weak secondary. Even if he plays against Richard Sherman, those few times where he'll be running routes against him, he'll still be able to get some work in. I expect him to have a very good game against the 49ers for sure. The third option I have is Deshaun Hamilton versus the Raiders. So I know Cortland Sutton was supposed to be the guy, but so far I think because he's the number one option in Denver, defenses are focusing on him. So that's where Deshaun Hamilton has been able to live. And that's also where Tim Patrick, who a lot of people didn't know about, has been able to live. So in this case, I like Deshaun Hamilton a little bit better. He plays in the slot. I expect him to get lots of involvement against the Raiders. 4,800 is a very good, cheap value play for sure. At tight end, I got Evan Ingram versus the Colts. As everybody knows, Odell Beckham is not playing today, which means that increases the number of targets for every other receiver in that offense. Sterling Shepard should have a good game, and also Evan Ingram has been having good games since Odell Beckham has not been playing these past couple weeks. Expect to have a good game this week. The flex option, Damian Williams. Spencer Ware is doubtful and most likely not going to be playing tonight. So Damian Williams has become the main running back in that backfield. He's also their main pass-catching running back, so he's going to get heavy involvement against the Seahawks. Very good value play as well, 5,700 in the flex spot. And at defense, I got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Lions. The Vikings defense is definitely still pushing to hang on to that sixth seed. They're going to bring it. The Detroit Lions, their trifecta is questionable today. So Matthew Stafford is questionable, LeGarrette Blount is questionable, and I think he was ruled out, and Kenny Golladay is questionable. So even if they all play, their status this entire game is going to be iffy. So I expect the Vikings to take full advantage and really, really control this game for sure.
Yeah, I know the Vikings have been kind of a up and down team, but that defense has been solid all year long. So
Mm-hmm.
don't hate that play. Okay, see if I can rebound. Let's see if I can win the last. I won the first week. Let's see if I can win the last week. So I like Russell Wilson against the Chiefs. I think this is gonna be a great game. Russell Wilson, fantasy speaking, look for him to bounce back. The last 2 weeks have been a little rough for him. And that Chiefs defense, everyone seems to score on. Like Josh, I like Marlon Mack against the Giants. Love what the offense is doing over there in Indy. So I think he'll have a solid game, especially at 5,500. Good value there. Christian McCaffrey, that's where I spent up. CMC has been what is he, RB2, I think, overall in the season. I know he's top five. I can't remember the exact number, but he's been kind of a quiet, under the radar guy. Doesn't get as talked to much as like a Gurley or a Zeke or a Barkley, but he's having a great year. So love McCaffrey against that Falcons defense. Love Devontae Adams. Rodgers is going to go. This is kind of almost a statement game. Most likely we'll see some young guys get involved, but I expect Adams to have a good game against that subpar Jets defense. Speaking of the Jets, Robbie Anderson was a good cheap option for 4,500. I know Josh had him in the flex. I use him here, utilize him kind of as a one trick, basically the one option on offense for the Jets. So got to go somewhere. And then just to save some cash, I went with Josh Reynolds for the Rams. Has gotten a decent amount of target share in that Rams offense. Surprisingly, since Cooper Kupp has gone down, but so hopefully he can snag a touchdown there. Cook against the Broncos. Pretty much, I'm just taking any tight end against the Broncos. They can't stop anyone. Cook's had a very up and down year, but against the Broncos, let's hope for a George Kittle-like performance from a few weeks ago. And in my flex, just kind of scraping the barrel here, since I kind of used a lot of money up on my top receiver and running back. So I went Kalen Ballage from the Miami Dolphins. With Frank Gore being out, should get a few carries there. I know Kenyon Drake's still your number one option, but Ballage could get some goal line carries. He's a big dude, and he's a rookie. They kind of want to see what they can get out of him. So maybe we'll get some nice goal line or some touches there for him. And then I went with the Browns defense. Browns defense has been solid all year. Bengals offense, I mean, there's not much to play for there. Not a lot of production we've seen from them of recent weeks. So in the Battle of Ohio, I like the Browns to get me some needed points there at the end. So there you have it. Fantasy Al Dente Duel brought to you by DraftKings. Good luck, fellas, but not really. So
Same to you. Same to you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, of course.
oh, I need one, man. I've had a rough go the last few weeks. I think you guys have beat me by good margins. We'll say. We'll just leave it at that. Good margins. So, well, great. Well, let's jump into some start and sits before we get into some questions. Josh, I'll start with you. Let's just run through some quarterbacks that you're loving this week.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan. And now this week's a little different for me because it's championship week for most leagues. I know Umar is in a little bit of some odd leagues, so different for him. For all the leagues I play in, at least it's championship week. So
yeah.
You're only this is it. This is make or break time. This isn't be conservative or whatnot. So for example, I love Baker Mayfield this week. I think he's a guy who has a huge ceiling, huge boom potential. The last time that he played against the Bengals, he threw for 4 touchdowns, 253 yards. He seems to have a little bit of a vendetta against Hugh Jackson. He still got that college mentality a little bit. We called this a rivalry game. So he really wants this win. I wouldn't be shocked if he throws for 3 or even 4 touchdowns again. I think he's someone you can trust to play this week. I love Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, comeback player of the year. I don't know who would be over him at this point. I mean, he's certainly turned things around. He didn't have the best game last week. That's because they really didn't need him to. They were able to run the ball on the ground, which I expect they'll be able to do again this week as well. But I still expect Luck to bounce back. Huge touchdown upside. I think he went, 8 or 9 weeks in a row throwing 3 or more touchdowns every week. I mean, the dude he's a touchdown machine. When they get in the red zone, I expect him and Ebron to hook up at least once. Get to that later. Those are 2 guys that I really like this week a lot, are Baker and Luck. I mean, other than the obvious, the Mahomes and and those guys. Baker and Luck are 2 guys that I would play over pretty much anyone, unless you've got someone like Mahomes or someone like Russell Wilson, Drew Brees. Honestly, I would probably play. I might even fade Drew Brees a little bit this week just because he's been hot and cold the past few. But that's where I'm at with quarterbacks.
Yeah, Breeze is another guy that cost me last week. Whew, that was a doo-doo of a game that he put up fantasy-wise. They got the win, so that's good for the Saints. But come on, Drew. Help me out there. It was semifinals last week. You cost me. All right, Umar. Who's the quarterbacks you're liking outside of those 2?
Yeah, with it being championship week for most standard leagues, obviously mine are a little bit different, but I think this week we usually bring in some sleeper candidates possibly, but this week you need to make sure you got the right plays. So I'm going big. Aaron Rodgers versus the Jets. I mean, they have nothing to play for. The Packers, they're already eliminated, but Aaron Rodgers wants to set that leadership culture in that group there. He wants to play. He wants to make sure that, this is his team. He's not sitting down because they got nothing to play for. And against the Jets, I mean, they're a bit of a hapless defense. I know Aaron Rodgers should be able to light him up, and you could definitely trust him in your fantasy title game this week. Also, same goes for Tom Brady. I know he's a very inconsistent fantasy quarterback. He may be, one of the legends of the game, obviously, but fantasy-wise, some weeks you could trust him, some weeks you can't. Against the Bills, I mean, if there's anything that can cure your offense, it's the Bills defense. So I expect Tom Brady to have a really good week. Even with the loss of Josh Gordon, I know that's big news this week, but that offense can run, without Josh Gordon. I mean, they've been doing it for the past couple weeks. He's been very sporadically involved, but Julian Edelman is still there. James White is still there. I mean, they have such a good offense even without Josh Gordon that they should have no trouble against the Bills. And Jared Goff, I know he's been pretty down these past couple of weeks ever since they had their bye week. He's not looked like the same Jared Goff before the bye week, and just that St. Louis, Los Angeles offense has not been looking good at all either. But I expect against the Cardinals, they're still in play for that number one seed overall in the NFC playoff picture. So I expect him to play really well against the Cardinals and really have a bounce back week and really get them back into a momentum as the regular season, postseason comes around too. So, yeah, I like Jared Goff versus the Cardinals.
Great. We had a question come in, Josh. I'll give it to you since you're high on Baker. Baker Mayfield or Ben Roethlisberger this week? No James Conner.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would probably go Ben in that scenario, but that's very close for me. I like Baker a lot. The Bengals defense is pretty awful. New Orleans defense has been pretty bad to start the season, but they have stepped it up lately. But I think Ben is playing for more, despite how Baker feels about Hugh Jackson, and I think they're both going to have great games. I could see it going either way. If it's a 6 point per passing touchdown league, definitely Ben. If it's a 4 point and those rushing yards might matter a little more, I could lean Baker. So it depends on your league. 6 point, go Ben. 4 point, if it were me, I'd probably still go Ben, but I could make a better argument for Baker based on the potential rushing yards.
There you go. There you have it. I like it. I think both are good plays this week, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
I would lean towards Ben as well. Just they're playing for that division still with Baltimore nipping at their heels and Cleveland now mathematically actually being eliminated.
Right.
Obviously, you still play on Sundays, but I think that does have a little bit of effect on your play. So, Josh, we'll keep with you with your sits, quarterback sits.
Sure. Quarterback sits. I don't have. See, this is the thing I was saying about the championship week is generally speaking, you probably don't have you're going to play who you have, and you're not going to have to make a lot of tough decisions, at least at quarterback, in my opinion. However, there's one big one for me, and I'm going to disagree with Umar on this. I'm going to sit Tom Brady. I know that it's Tom Brady. It's hard to sit him. He's got that name brand value. It's Brady. It's December, but they just lost 2 games. Brady hasn't been himself. Last week when he threw that pick at the end of the game, I mean, that was very not like what we're used to seeing from Tom Brady. I know the Miami game was a bit of a fluke with the lateral and the this and the that, but it's championship week. Tom Brady isn't going to lose the game for you. He's going to put up some points, but I don't think he's going to win it for you either. His last 4 weeks, he's put up 19, 15, 27, and 13. Sure, the 27, great if you get that. But the other 3, 19, 15, 13 points, that's not going to win you a fantasy championship.
Not going to cut it.
Again, he's right. He's not gonna lose it for you. He's not gonna give you like an 8 point performance or a 9 point performance. He'll put up some points, but I don't trust him to put up the 20 plus that I need to win my championship. So for me, I'm sitting Tom Brady this week.
All right, I like it. I'm a rebuttal, or you can just move on to your sits.
I think I covered it during the start
Yeah.
portion because I mean I completely agree with everything that you said, Josh. But I think in a crucial game where they're still fighting to make sure they could clinch a playoff seat, I think they can win the AFC East if they beat the Bills today. So yeah, I agree that he may not be like one of the better starts this week, but I think against the Bills he'll be able to rebound and have a pretty solid week. So in that reasoning, that's why I like him as a start compared to a sit. But yeah, I completely agree with all your reasoning there. But yeah, I lean more towards the start for Tom Brady. As far as my big sit, mine would be Kirk Cousins. A lot of people expected when they made that switch from John DeFilippo to Kevin Stefanski that might help Kirk Cousins because Case Keenum had a career year last year. That's how he earned a fat contract with Denver because of Kevin Stefanski being his quarterbacks coach, really revitalized his career. So a lot of people thought now he's doing the play calling, he'll be able to help Kirk Cousins and really develop his game and really live up to that $84 million guaranteed contract. But on the flip side, it's actually been helping the running game. I mean, we saw 200 plus rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns in that 41 to, I believe, 17 blowout that they had. So it's really the quite opposite. And maybe this will take some time and Kirk Cousins will get a little bit more involved in that offense. But if anything, it's really helping the running game. So even if you have Kirk Cousins in your roster, he maybe it'll be similar to actually to Tom Brady, where he'll do pretty well, but not good enough. And so, kind of like your reasoning for Tom Brady, Josh, I think that's my reasoning for Kirk Cousins, where he'll do good, but not good enough to really win you your title. He'll give you those supplemental points as far as like helping overall for your roster, but not as like, this is the guy that I won my title because of Kirk Cousins. It's not going to be that case. It's going to be because of the rest of your roster. So for that reason, if you have another option, maybe a backup quarterback on your bench, Kirk Cousins, maybe you should leave him off your starting roster.
Yeah, it's he's been kind of a frustrating one because he had the up and down beginning of the year, but definitely has been down the last few weeks. Fantasy wise, obviously last week they got the win, much needed, and we'll see what they do this week. But I agree that too much on the line to start Cousins, unless you're kind of like how Josh was saying, how if you're that boomer bust, you're going all out. He could have that breakout Cousins 35-point game, but
Yeah.
it is safer to. For me personally, I have him on the bench because I have Matt Ryan, so I have Matt Ryan starting off. I mean, that's a given. That's an obvious one. We don't need to get into that.
Yes. So that's exactly the point. Yeah, if you have a better option like a Matt Ryan who can totally light up the Panthers offense in a division game, that's a better option than Kirk Cousins for sure.
So here would be an interesting question, and I didn't get this. I just thought off the top of my head. But if you have Drew Brees or Kirk Cousins, both have been kind of struggling of late. Who do you like in that scenario? You still go Brees?
If it were me, yeah, I'd probably still go Breeze in this situation where they still have something more to fight for compared to the Vikings. So I know he's had those down these past couple weeks, as far as the entire New Orleans offense is concerned as well. But yeah, I mean, Drew Brees is Drew Brees for a reason. I mean, he's really going to rebound against the Steelers this week, so for sure.
Well, the Vikings are in that second wild card, so they still have a lot to fight for.
That's true.
But
that's very true.
I get what you're saying though. So I mean. Yeah, I'd probably start Brees as well, but just an interesting tidbit. So, we'll stay with you. Let's move to running backs. Let's get who are your guys you're high on this week? Hot on, whatever you want to call it. Who are you starting?
Yeah. I got you. So similar approach. I mean, you got to your fantasy title for a reason. You got your horses that you're riding. But as far as just great matchups this week, in case you're debating between a few players, Tariq Cohen versus the 49ers. I mean, 49ers are totally just they're in a mode where they're just looking towards 2019, seeing what they have in the cupboard for next year. So I expect the Bears to be able to control this game in all facets. Both their defense should be able to control the game as well as the running game. And this is where Tariq Cohen will really be able to feast. I mean, we've talked about it many times already that Tariq Cohen has become the main running back in that backfield compared to Jordan Howard. So he'll be involved in the running game, the passing game. I mean, he's going to be a monster in today's game. Nick Chubb versus the Bengals. I mean, ever since he's been inserted in the starting roster, Nick Chubb has been a complete revelation in that Browns offense. And especially, against the Bengals, it's a weaker defense. Last time they played the Bengals, he had a really great game. So I expect Nick Chubb to have a really good game this week. And as we already talked about, Dalvin Cook, I mean, he's totally been revitalized in this Kevin Stefanski offense. So I expect him to have a really good game against the Lions for sure.
There you go. Yeah. Nick Chubb has been fun to watch there in Cleveland. They got a fun duo in Baker and Chubb if you're a Browns fan.
Yeah.
So when they start that head coaching search, that's going to be, I think, the hot job. So, Josh, who are those running backs you're sitting this week?
Well, real quick before I do the running backs I want to sit, I'm real excited to start Jalen Samuels this week, and hopefully. Whether you're starting him at running back or tight end, depending upon your league settings, which is a whole nother mess. If he's tight end eligible and if you own him, you start him. There's no debate about it. He shouldn't be probably, but if he is, the only tight end I would consider starting over him is Travis Kelce, maybe Zach Ertz, but that's it. So if you don't own one of those guys and he's tight end eligible, make sure you stick him in. Check your league settings. Who knows? Maybe he's been eligible this whole time and you just haven't known. So if you could do that, if you get a running back at your tight end spot, do it. Hands down, not even a question. If he's not tight end eligible, I still like him as a running back too or a flex. Over the past 2 weeks, He's accumulated 92 and 172 yards combined rushing and receiving. So he's clearly involved in the offense. He's averaging 132 a game when Connor's been out, and Connor's out again this week. They're definitely going to have to throw the ball. This has a possibility to be a very high-scoring game between New Orleans and Pittsburgh. I mean, there's a scenario where it could be a shootout, and that definitely benefits Samuels as a receiving running back. So I love him this week.
I just have to jump in real quick because that is just it is so amazing that he's tight end eligible. I just went right now because I didn't even think about that. In my championship league, I had Samuels as my flex, and I was rolling with Austin Hooper as my tight end. Yeah, I can play Samuels as my tight end instead, and then use I can use Matt Breida or Jordan Howard or Cortland Sutton now in my flex instead of Hooper. So thank you, Josh, for that helping me out. I didn't even think to look at that. So the fact that Samuels is still tight end eligible, if you're using Yahoo, it's for sure updated and available. I don't know about ESPN for sure, but okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's ridiculous, but it's awesome for owners. Like in your situation, Ryan, plug him in, and now you just gain a huge advantage, in my opinion. Definitely, over someone like Austin Hooper. So yeah, that's awesome.
And we've already talked about it, that the tight end position has been weak overall this entire season. So if you can use a guy who's going to be heavily involved in that offense in your tight end spot, that's just totally taking advantage of, the formatting settings that Yahoo has. I can confirm that ESPN, he's only a running back. So unfortunately, ESPN, if you're playing in an ESPN league, you can't take advantage of that.
Okay, yeah. Because I tried to get him into my ESPN league, and I did not, so I failed my waiver claim. So, all right, continue on, Josh. That's great news. I am giddy now.
glad to help at least one person that I know of.
There you go.
The other guy I like this week a lot, and I mentioned him in my DFS lineup, is Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram, I know he can be a little bit boom or bust, but I expect him this to be a game where he can be featured. And again, it's championship week. Mark Ingram is the guy who we've seen multiple times this year have those 100-yard, 2-touchdown games, or, games where he catches 3 or 4 passes and takes one to the house. Going through his game log this year, he's got games of 25, 21, 22, 28 fantasy points. But then he also has games of 3, 5, 9, 6. So it might be a little difficult if you have some of those stud running backs. You're going to stick with your guys. But if you had someone like, if you were the unfortunate Kareem Hunt owner and you've made it this far, or if you're the Todd Gurley owner and you're really nervous about his usage this week, consider Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram has a really good shot to have a big game, even with, Kamara and Ingram together. The past few weeks, he's gotten 13 rushes, 12 rushes, 11 rushes, 16 rushes. Those are all within the past 5 weeks. So he's clearly being used. It's just a matter of whether or not he finds the end zone. When he doesn't, he disappoints you. When he does, he'll get you the win.
Yeah, he had those 2 weeks back-to-back of like 25-plus points. So definitely hoping for that. Okay, I think, you were right. I jumped ahead and said sits, but now I'll let you get into your sits since you gave us those starts there. And I'm just, I'm a little lost right now. I'm happy with that tight end information. So insider on my team, go ahead into your sits there, Josh. We'll keep it with you.
Oh, no worries. For my running back sits this week, I know this one's probably a no-brainer, but I just want to reiterate, we want to sit Peyton Barber going against the Dallas defense, despite what we saw last week when Marlon Mack was able to run all over Dallas. I don't expect the same thing out of Peyton Barber. Tampa Bay is going to have to throw the ball. One interesting note, though, is that Sean Lee is a healthy scratch this week. So that is something that's interesting for the Cowboys. Leighton Vander Esch has been amazing, so I don't think it's going to hurt them necessarily in any way. But that's the kind of thing that someone could see in the morning and go, "Oh, Sean Lee's not playing." All of a sudden, Peyton Barber, he's a flex running back or running back 2 that my opponent's not going to expect. Don't get cute. Championship week, sit Peyton Barber.
Yeah.
I had written or talked about earlier in the week. I know this game already happened. Was that I wanted to sit Adrian Peterson. He did end up getting a good amount of yards against the Tennessee defense, but he only had 51 rushing, 20 receiving, no touchdowns. So I know the game's passed. Hopefully you didn't start Adrian Peterson because he only got you 8 or 9 points depending on your scoring format. But those are the 2 guys I really wanted to stay away from this week.
There you go. Yeah, Umar, to your sits.
Yeah, I only have one big name that I got as a sit, and that's David Johnson versus the Rams. Um, David Johnson, ever since they made that switch to Byron Leftwich as the offensive coordinator, he had one good game, and that was the very first game that Byron Leftwich was the offensive coordinator. And since then, it's been the same sputtering Arizona offense. And as much as fantasy owners want David Johnson to have a really good week this week against the Rams. The Rams have also been suffering as far as their defense is concerned, allowing a lot of points. And I expect them to really control this game, both defensively, offensively, just a really good get right game for them. And in that case, I mean, that's really going to limit David Johnson having some sort of, zombie type of game where he just comes back from the dead sort of thing. I don't expect that to happen. We all know he is the focal point of that offense, so maybe looking into 2019 when they can get the understanding of the playbook a little bit better, Byron Leftwich can get a better idea as far as what he wants to do. There's actually talk that Steve Wilkes is actually going to be out as head coach, so it may be a whole regime change there. Excuse me. So who knows what's going to happen? But I think whoever comes in for next year should be able to utilize David Johnson's talents. But as far as for the rest of this year, I think, unfortunately, he's, a droppable sort of candidate. And definitely, if you have him on your roster, keep him on the bench for sure. So that's my only big sit that I want to obviously stress here that, yeah, if you got David Johnson, I mean, don't use him.
And how weird is that to say? David Johnson was a top 5 pick. He was number 1 overall, and we're saying sit him in the championship of your league. So, you hope he gets back on track because of how promising he looked,
Yep.
before his injury last year. And I know it's not really him; it's just the utilization there, and that whole offense has struggled. New quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think things will get right there. But for now, not a guy you want to roll your trophy on. So.
Nope.
Well, great. Unless you have anything else to add about running backs, let's move on to receivers. Ummer, we'll stay with you with your starts at the receiver position.
Sure. So, I already talked about it earlier where I like Tom Brady, so that means I definitely like Julian Edelman. After he came off his suspension, he started out slow, but then that game against the Bills came along on Thursday night, and that's where he really went off. So I expect him to have the similar effort against the Bills this week. As mentioned, Josh Gordon is no longer a factor there, so I expect him to have a good game. The rest of the receivers there to have a really good game, but he's been the only true receiver that Tom Brady can trust in that offense. Because even James White, the running back out of the backfield, he used to be that consistent force out of the backfield as far as the passing game is concerned. But even he's been having a couple down weeks. But Julian Edelman has been consistent, been able to get 6 or 7 receptions every single game, at least around 70 to 80 yards. So Edelman's a really good start this week. I mean, another name that's already been mentioned already a few times, but Devontae Adams versus the Jets. Was watching ESPN earlier this morning, and Field Yates threw an amazing stat. Only 2 players in an ESPN Standard League have had 15 or more points every single week this year. One of them is Patrick Mahomes, and the other one is Devontae Adams. So, I mean, Devontae Adams has been a consistent fantasy player this week, probably arguably the best fantasy receiver, if you want to put it as far as a consistency rating is concerned. So against the Jets, I mean, he's been the only healthy option that Aaron Rodgers can rely on as well. I mean, he's had to deal with Randall Cobb being hurt. Geronimo Allison was great, but then he obviously is on the IR now. I mean, he's had to deal with rookie receivers. So Devontae Adams is a guy you can trust for sure. In a big game on Sunday night tonight, Tyreek Hill against the Seahawks, I mean, he's going to be able to go off. And I know he had a down week. I mean, the Dallas offense had a down week last week, but Amari Cooper versus the Buccaneers, he's going to be able to light them up for sure. So he's a really good start for your championship title game this week. So I like Amari Cooper versus the Bucks for sure.
Yeah, should have a bounce back for Cooper. I'm sure Josh is hoping for that for his Cowboys after their little skid. But I'll let you. You can either touch on that or just go right into your starts.
Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, no, I agree with Umar completely. I just want to add that I really like. I'm not sure if you said this or not. I kind of tuned out for a second there. Is I like T.Y. Hilton a lot this week. I love him. I think he's going to have a great game. 77 yards minimum in the last 5 consecutive weeks. He's doing great, and we already talked about Luck, and I expect him to bounce back. As far as my sits, though, I want to sit DJ Moore. I know he's really come on. He's a number 1 receiver in Carolina, but again, as I said earlier, no Cam Newton equals no Panthers for me unless you have Christian McCaffrey. And then obviously if you have Christian McCaffrey, you're going to play him. He's someone who I would personally fade in DFS But for your championship, I mean, he's a no-brainer. You're gonna stick with him. But I don't want any other Panthers. My bold sit this week. Look,
I know where you're going with
I
this.
don't know if I don't know if I can do it personally, but I would strongly, strongly consider sitting Adam Thielen if you own him. We talked about this in our start sit column this week. You know, Adam Thielen, he got you to the playoffs. He helped get you to your championship. He was great to start the season. Since the bye week in week 10, he's had 66 yards, 125, 28, 70, and 19. Those are his yardage totals in the 5 weeks since coming off the bye. During that time, he scored 2 touchdowns, and he's had 7, 8, 5, 5, and 2 receptions. That's the thing about Adam Thielen. It's very similar, in my opinion, to Tom Brady. He may not lose it for you, but I don't think he's going to have one of those huge weeks he's had early in the season to win you your championship. I can't see him going for like 120 and a touchdown this week. I just don't see that in the Minnesota game plan. I don't see that coming from Thielen. You know, last week against Miami, he only had 2 catches for 19 yards. That's it. The week prior, he had 5 for 70, but he didn't score. You know, the week before that, he had 5 catches for only 28 yards. Now, his fantasy day was saved because he did score. But if he didn't score, 5 for 28 and then 2 for 19, that's 2 of his past 3 weeks. That's not a guy I want starting in my fantasy championship. I mean, there's guys that could be on your bench like Robbie Anderson or Robert Foster, who's come on as of late. Robert Foster's been better these past few weeks than Adam Thielen. You know, that's not something we would have thought earlier in the year. You know, maybe you even have like a Kenny Golladay, you know, who's like been a flex player for you, and you know you have that tough decision this week. Those are the types of guys I would play over Thielen. I know most of you aren't going to sit him, and I'm not saying you have to sit him. What I'm saying is I'm very nervous to start him, and if I have some of those fringe guys, I might start them over him.
Josh, I need you to say, without a doubt, sit Thielen, and if he's on your team, you're starting Foster over Thielen. Be bold, be confident.
If I have if he were the wide receiver, like if it's a 3 receiver league or a 2 receiver league, and I have 2 guys, and he's my 3rd receiver or he's my 2nd receiver, and then I have Robert Foster, yes, I would start Robert Foster over him. If I have 2 guys above him, like if my receivers are stacked, you know, if he's my number 1 receiver, I'm probably not sitting him. But you know, like for example, I have a team in my dynasty league where I have DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, and Julio Jones. Okay, so if I have those 3 guys, and like if I'm worried about Julio, who is supposed to play, by the way, if I have guys like Adams and Hopkins, and then Thielen were my wide receiver 3. That's a scenario where I would sit him for someone like Robert Foster, you know. But if Thielen's my number 1 receiver, it's going to be hard to get away from him.
Yeah, I mean it's bold. I like the thought, and he has been definitely a disappointment as of late. So here's a little scenario I'll give you, and this is in a league of mine. It's not my team by any means, but so here's a guy that he's in the championship this week in our dynasty.
Yeah.
He has his 3 receivers: Antonio Brown, Michael Thomas, Adam Thielen. Great looking roster. Now on his bench, as you kind of mentioned, he has Robbie Anderson sitting there. He has who else? James Conner's hurt. So Anthony Miller has Valdez Scantling. Are you starting any of those 3 over Thielen in the flex? Obviously you're rolling Brown and Thomas as your receivers. So in the flex.
Right. That's the exact scenario where, yes, I would start me personally, I would start Robbie Anderson over Adam Thielen because you have 2 stud receivers above him, Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown. And, you know, clearly that's why this guy's in the championship, just hearing his roster. Mm-hmm. That's why he got there. And, look, it's great. I know Thielen helped get you there, but you already have your 2 stud guys. Don't take a chance with Thielen, who's been really inconsistent as of late. Roll out Robbie Anderson. He's got an amazing matchup. That's the perfect scenario.
Well, there you go, Levi. If you're listening, you have about what, an hour and 40 minutes to bench Thielen and put in Robbie Anderson. So there you go, my friend. Take the advice. Moving on to you. Any bold sits, or are you going more middle of the road here?
Well, one bold sit. I mean, this happened obviously last night already, but I said sit Keenan Allen versus the Ravens. He actually did not have that great of a game, as did, I mean, the Los Angeles Chargers did not have that great of a game either. I think he ended up with 5 receptions and 58 yards, no scoring touchdowns, obviously. So the Ravens defense really shut him down, and I mean, they clearly. That defense is looking pretty ferocious as the postseason is coming around right now for them. So yeah, so that's one that panned out for me. I completely agree with the Adam Thielen sentiment. As we already mentioned earlier, I think they're shifting more into a run first offense and then letting Kirk Cousins do the supplemental work as far as building off the run and doing the play action, playing under center. So yeah, I'm not surprised that Adam Thielen is not having that great of a season as the after the bye week. And yeah, I completely agree. Whereas like if you have him in your starting roster and you have better options out there, you maybe want to swap him out for a better matchup based start compared to Adam Thielen versus the Lions. Um, already talked about it, but the Cardinals offense, I think they're a bit of a mess. So as great as Larry Fitzgerald is, and as his moniker Larry Legend lives and future Hall of Famer, but against the Rams, I don't expect him to have a very good game. If David Johnson can't get it going against the Rams, I really don't expect the passing offense to do all that better. And then another big sit that I have is actually Mike Evans versus the Cowboys. Um,
Mm.
in this game, I expect the Cowboys to have a pretty good game defensively. They got shut out last week. Their corners are actually at a closer height comparison to Mike Evans. Mike Evans is usually able to take advantage of his height differential between corners. So that's how he's able to get those 50-50 balls, jump balls, high point the ball, and be able to take advantage that way. But Cowboys defenders, Byron Jones, and yeah, help me out here, Josh, is the other corner on the Cowboys.
On the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Wonder, is it Jalen? I'd have to check. I forget. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, whatever it is, it's just they have a better height comparison to Mike Evans, so they can limit those 50-50 balls that he's usually able to take advantage of. And just overall, I don't expect the Tampa Bay offense to have a really good day against the Cowboys this week. I expect, James Winston to be put in pressure situations, which will force some turnovers. DeMarcus Lawrence will be able to get after him, get some good pressure on him that way. So yeah, shouldn't be a good offensive day for the Tampa Bay offense. So, if that reason alone, another reason, excuse me, that I don't like Mike Evans versus the Cowboys this week. So, a little bit on the bolder side, I think.
A Woozy, that's who it is.
Chidobe, my dog
Woozy.
from Colorado.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's
Although I don't know about the. I like what you're saying with that Umber though, but I'm not sure I completely agree with the height situation. Chidobe is only 6 foot. Mike Evans is like 6'6" or 6'5". So I like your reasoning. I just I don't know about the height.
In that case, yes, obviously he's got the 5-inch differential there, but yeah, I think Byron Jones is like about 6'2", I believe, so that's where the closer differential there is. But overall, just I don't like the Tampa Bay offense versus the Dallas Cowboys defense this week.
Yeah.
You see, Fitzmagic is a healthy scratch as backup.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not. No.
Yeah, they're rolling with a different backup. So maybe time to move on from Fitzpatrick in Tampa Bay, or something else going on. Who knows? Great. So what other fantasy show gives you Mike Evans and Adam Thielen as sits in your championship week? Fantasy Al Dente. We go bold here. We make your recipe cooked spicy. All right. Enough of that. Moving on. Tight ends. Well, I'm just going to say your start of the week for tight ends, Jalen Samuels, if you're using Yahoo. That's your start of the week.
That's right.
That is your start of the week. But I'll let you gentlemen break it down if you have anyone else other than we say it every week. The big three, Kelsey, Gronk, Ertz. Obviously, Kittle's in there now, so obviously those four are all obvious must-sits. Anyone else you want to throw in there? Umar, we'll start with you to start.
Well, I know coming into the season, we classified him as a top 3, but Rob Gronkowski has not been playing like one.
Kittle's in your top 3,
definitely, yeah. Kittle has replaced him, yes, this season particularly. But I think against the Bills, and like I said, just to reiterate the fact that, the loss of Josh Gordon really changes up that passing offense a little bit. So I expect Edelman to really feast today, and I expect Rob Gronkowski to really feast today. So I expect him to have a really good game against the Bills. Jared Cook versus the Broncos. I mean, he's been a fantasy sort of surprise this whole year. I mean, we all know the story about Jared Cook and his potential, but never living up to it. But yeah, he's been looking really good in that Oakland offense for some reason. I think they just found a way to utilize his talents the best that they can against the Broncos. I mean, they don't have many receiving options, so Jared Cook becomes the number one guy by by default almost. Excuse me. So yeah, I expect him to have a really good game against the Broncos, and Eric Ebron versus the Giants. I mean, the Indianapolis Colts offense has been looking really good. Obviously, um, Jack Doyle's on the IR, so Eric Ebron becomes the default number one tight end there. And I mean, he's been one of the top three guys that you can consider for this year. I mean, we talk about top three guys that you can rely on at the tight end position, so he's become one of those guys for sure. And against the Giants, I expect him to have a really good game. Jumping into sits, Kyle Rudolph versus the Lions. I mean, he's just a very inconsistent guy that we've always talked about. Austin Hooper versus the Panthers. I don't expect him to do as well against the Panthers. Jimmy Graham against the Jets. I know that the passing offense for Green Bay is a little bit questionable after Devontae Adams, obviously. But I mean, Jimmy Graham is just. I mean, we've talked about this many a time. Just that he just does not look the same Jimmy Graham that we're used to seeing, and his involvement in the offense is very sporadic and very inconsistent. So even in a good matchup against the Jets, I don't expect him to do that well. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't like the Tampa Bay offense against the Dallas Cowboys defense, so that really limits Cameron Brate's potential. So he's got maybe, I think, 10 receptions in his past 4 games, and that's usually when it comes into the red zone. But I don't expect Tampa Bay to get into the red zone all that often today, so they'll probably be settling for a lot of field goals instead. So I don't like Cameron Brate.
Yeah, Brait has been an interesting all year. He basically needs that one touchdown to satisfy.
Very touchdown dependent,
Yes.
unfortunately. So yeah, I don't expect many touchdowns today.
Yeah. So, all right, Josh, onto your tight ends. You can do starts and sits. Roll through them.
Sure. Tight ends. I hate tight ends.
Yeah.
It's I'm recovered most of it, to be honest. Tight ends isn't really a position you can get super in depth with, because like you said, Brian, it's the top 3 this year, the top 4, because Gronk's been a little bit of a disappointment, but it's the top 3 guys, and then after that it's a bit of a wasteland. I mean, Eric Ebron's been great. Roll him out there. When Jack Doyle was in, both Doyle and Ebron were startable options, but since Doyle's been out, Ebron is start every week. Just don't think about it too much. And then after that, it really just drops off a shelf. I agree with Ummer about sitting Jimmy Graham this week. Jimmy Graham's been one of my biggest tight end disappointments this season. I've loved Jimmy Graham his whole career, going all the way back when he was with the Saints. There was that comparison with who was going to be better between Gronk and Graham. And, honestly, at the time, I'll admit, I called it wrong. I thought Graham was going to be the better of the two. And you know what? If he had stayed in New Orleans, maybe he could have been. Because Gronk being as injury prone as it is, but since he's moved around so much, he hasn't been able to find his way in the Green Bay offense. I mean, before the bye week in PPR, he actually had double-digit fantasy points every week, other than week 1, for 5 weeks in a row. But then since the bye, the 8 weeks since then, he's only had double-digit fantasy points twice in PPR. So I mean, that's the best format possible for pass catching tight ends. But Graham has only had 2 performances, double digits. He's had 6, 3, 5, 2, 2, 3, 3. So you can't play him. He's been such a disappointment. He's lost me a lot of bets. The only thing I'm going to disagree with Ummer on is Cameron Brate, and here's why.
Oh.
Here's why.
Okay.
If you're in the fantasy championship, most likely you own one of those big tight ends, okay? But if you don't own Gronk or Kittle or Kelsey or Ertz, or Ebron, if you've made it this far and you don't have one of those guys, there really aren't any good options out there. I mean, Jared Cook has a good matchup this week. He's a good option. But if you have someone like Jimmy Graham or Trey Burton or Austin Hooper or Vance McDonald, they've been plug-and-play options. You've been able to cycle through them. Burton has a good week every now and then. McDonald has a good week every now and then. Brate is a guy I would start over them only because of the upside, only because of the touchdown upside. And I completely agree with all of Ummer's points. But the thing about it is, if they do get in the red zone, Brate's the guy. Winston loves him in the red zone. I believe it was, what was it, 3 weeks ago? Brate only had 2 catches the whole game. Both were
Both for
touchdowns.
touchdowns, yeah.
Right. Like, Winston loves him in the red zone. And with O.J. Howard out, as you know, he's been out for a while now on IR, when they get down there, Brate's the guy. They can't run the ball. If we're not liking Mike Evans this week, if we're not liking Peyton Barber this week, and if they do manage to get within the 20, it's going to be Cameron Brate. So in my fantasy championship, I would cringe while doing it, but I would start Cameron Brate if I don't have one of those elite 4 or 5 guys, just knowing that he has probably the highest touchdown upside of any tight end not named Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a fun question for you then, because this is probably I'm sure people have this on their roster. Jared Cook or Cameron Brate?
Oh, Jared Cook, hands down.
Cook. Yeah, Cook, yeah.
Okay, so Brate, you're looking more if like you have the Austin Hooper, the Vance McDonald's, the Kyle Rudolphs,
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. I like it. Well, I just cannot reiterate it enough. If you're playing Yahoo, you better go make sure Jalen Samuels is starting at tight end right now.
sure.
Unless you have Kelsey or Ertz, you can still keep them over Samuel, or maybe not even. I mean, that's even debatable. But I digress. I'll move on from my elation of that revelation. So, okay, defenses we go through quickly. Josh, just give me your top 3 defenses. We don't need to go through start sits. Just your 3 favorites.
Browns, Vikings, Texans.
Yep, love all those. Ummer?
I like all those as well, but I'll also throw in the Cowboys versus the Bucks.
Yeah, which is strange. Think of just what 6 weeks ago, the Bucks had the #1 offense in the NFL, I believe. Maybe it was more than 6 weeks, but it was for sure about the halfway point. The Bucks were the #1 offense. Who cared who was quarterback? If it was Fitzmagic or if it was Winston, they were just steamrolling on offense. Horrible defense, and since then they have just plummeted.
Yeah.
So, I don't hate the Cowboys either, which is strange against that offense. So, well, great. Well, shall we get into some questions? Anything you want to add before we do?
Yep.
Okay, quick one here. Quarterback. I'll start with you, Josh, since you're the Cowboys fan. Dak or Baker?
Baker.
Yeah.
Love. Dak's another one who I think he could have a big week, but he's a very big boom bust guy. I think they're going to lean on Zeke this week. I mean, Tampa Bay has been terrible in almost all facets of defense, but especially against the run. And, last week they didn't get Zeke as involved as they could have. So I think they're going to correct that this week, and he's going to have a huge game. So I'd start Baker over Dak.
Yeah, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did our start and sit column. You guys did a collaboration. I believe you both had Dak as a sit, actually, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reasoning is just similar to Kirk Cousins, where it's like I think he'll do enough where they can be in a position to win the game. But as far as fantasy-wise, he's not a guy that will win you your championship title this week. He'll do okay, but not like eye-gouging numbers where it's like, oh my God, I won my title because of Dak Prescott. Nobody's gonna be saying that tomorrow.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You don't want 14 points from your quarterback in a championship.
Exactly.
So, all right, Ummer, stick with quarterbacks. Josh Allen versus New England or Jared Goff versus Arizona? It's surprisingly
that's a
tough.
good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I probably have to lean more on Jared Goff because of the higher ceiling there, where I know Josh Allen has been, on fire these last couple weeks because of his running ability, but if the Patriots do one thing well is they know how to game plan for opposing offenses, so they'll be able to limit Josh Allen's running ability, and unfortunately Josh Allen still has not developed as much as a passer. He's okay, but I think he'll take another offseason to really develop himself as a passer, so in this case I like Jared Goff more than Josh Allen.
Yeah. Question for you guys. Oh, go ahead.
No. The only thing I wanted to say about that is that for me, it was going to depend on your format. If it's 4 point per passing touchdown, I'm going to go Josh Allen because of the rushing, and if it's 6 point, then I might lean more towards Goff because of the passing.
Makes sense. Yeah. So make sure you know make sure you know your scoring there. But I like that little tidbit.
Yeah.
Okay. Question for you guys, and this is not necessarily fantasy related. More so just out of my own curiosity. I'll just start with you. But right now, if you're starting an NFL team and your choice at quarterback is Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, who are you taking?
Oh, that's a great
They've
question.
shown similarities. They can both run the ball, but have not developed great as passing. Obviously, Jackson's won some big games, but I don't know.
I would probably say I'd lean more towards Jackson because if there was one knock on Josh Allen when he was coming into the draft, obviously, and into the league, was that he was very inaccurate. And unfortunately, accuracy is one of those things you can't coach. You either have it or you don't. He may be able to develop it a little bit, but not to an extent where it's like he'll make, I think coming into his final college statistics where he was around 50% accuracy completion percentage. So he may be able to raise it to like low 60s, but it's not going to be this sort of like monumental rise where it's like mid 60s, possibly even low 70s as far as accuracy. So in that case, I like Lamar Jackson a little bit better because he is a run first quarterback. So we've seen it already. I mean, I think I threw out the stat where he was second in the league in rushing and only starting 3 games behind Cam Newton. So, I mean, he's definitely a run first guy. And we saw back at Louisville that he's been able to throw the deep ball. And I think they should be able to build that Baltimore offense around him. I know you're saying start a franchise, but I'm just saying just in this situation right now, I think they'll be able to build the offense around him where they can get him some, deep threat receivers, run that RPO option, and just, yeah, as far as a future prospect, I like Lamar Jackson a little bit better compared to Josh Allen.
Cool.
I agree.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as well. I was just curious because they're both kind of similar.
Oh, it's a great question.
Similar
It's
style.
a fantastic question.
It's a very good question. It's one that's come up a lot lately. And here's one point. And again, I agree with pretty much everything Umar said there. I think he hit the nail on the head. One big difference between the two, and both are great rushing quarterbacks, struggle a little bit with accuracy, but Lamar Jackson has more designed rushes, whereas Josh Allen, he has far less designed rushes. He just ends up scrambling and then, calling it like an audible and just running because he can't find an open receiver. And I think that speaks volumes in the fact that the Ravens, they know, and again, I know you said start a franchise, but, we have to look at where they are. The Ravens are using Jackson the right way. They're designing runs for him in situations where they can make the best use of his talents. Whereas in Buffalo, they're trying to have Josh Allen drop back to pass, which is not his strength. And then when he's unable to do that, he has to scramble around and then just make a play. And he's been doing it. He's been scrambling around and making plays. But he's not being used correctly right now. And the accuracy is a little bit of an issue, just like Umar said. Like, if I think, they're both still rookies. So who knows? They have lots of time ahead of them. But the accuracy is an issue. I think if he can't improve that, which is something that you either have or you don't, but, it could be fine-tuned. If he can't improve that and has to scramble for the majority of his career, it's not going to last very long versus Jackson, who they're letting him throw when they need him to, and they're designing run plays for him. I think he's going to have a better future in that type of offense.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. When I did my draft analysis back before the draft, that was kind of what I basically said. Both quarterbacks are not your prototypical stand-in-pocket guys, so whoever drafts them is going to have to tailor-made their offense, and Jackson was definitely even more so. Like, they're going to have to really change the offensive scheme to be able to utilize him, and the Ravens have done just that, whereas Buffalo hasn't, and we see Josh Allen's kind of done some stuff, but yeah, we'll see if they change things going forward. But okay, well, we'll get out of that rabbit hole now. That was just back to fantasy. Back to fantasy. Okay, Josh, I think you were up. 10-team PPR flex start. Leonard Fournette or Jamal Williams or McGuire or Breda or Doug Baldwin. A lot of names at you.
Only one?
Only one, I believe.
Baldwin.
Baldwin. Okay. He had 2 touchdowns last week. About time.
Yep, they're playing Kansas City. I know that Seattle, they really want to run the ball. They're the number 1 rushing offense in the league right now, but they're going to have to throw. They can't run the ball all game and expect to beat Kansas City. They're going to have to throw the ball, and I expect Doug Baldwin to benefit.
Okay, I like it. Ummer, pick 2 running backs non-PPR. Leonard Fournette, Josh Howard, Gus Edwards, Jamal Williams, Kalen Ballage, or James. Well, Connor's out, so we'll just throw him out of there. So Fournette, Howard, Edwards, Williams, or Ballage. Am I saying that right? Is it Ballage or Ballage? I think it's Ballage.
I think it's Ballage.
Ballage.
Yeah, Caleb Ballage.
Ballage. I should know that. He went to ASU. I mean, I covered him in the draft, but it's early still out here in LA.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they can pick Edwards because he played yesterday, so
Good
that's
point. Yeah.
not an option. um, I probably actually have to say, how many do I have to pick? Two.
Pick two. So I guess now we're at Fournette, Howard, Williams, or Balaj.
I probably have to go with Howard and Fournette. And Fournette for the reasoning because the Miami Dolphins are 31st in rush defense, so I expect Leonard Fournette to have a really good game. And I know we really talk up a lot about Tariq Cohen, but when they need those serious crucial runs as far as third down in the red zone, that's where Jordan Howard makes his money. So, especially against the 49ers, they'll get into the red zone. They'll have those crucial third downs where Jordan Howard will, definitely be more touchdown dependent for sure. So he'll get into a touchdown for sure this week. So yeah, Howard and Fournette out of those options.
Howard and Fournette. Okay. Josh, I feel like these questions always kind of like stack up with each other. So Jordan Howard or Matt Breida playing each other.
Yeah, Jordan Howard for sure in that scenario for me. I don't, again, I wouldn't want to play running back against the Chicago defense as it is. So, similar to like what Umar said before, I like Tariq Cohen in this game, but Jordan Howard does make his money in the red zone. He has that power run, and over the past few weeks, he's actually done really well. Jordan Howard. I mean, he's been given like 19, 19, and 17 rushes in the past few weeks, and he's gone over 100 yards 2 out of the last 3, I believe. So yeah, I wouldn't want to play running back against Chicago. So give me Jordan Howard.
Okay.
And also in that particular situation, Matt Breida is actually questionable, so
Right.
his involvement in this game will be very limited. So he'll probably get maybe 10 to 12 touches, and then they'll take him out of the game and use Jeffrey Wilson instead. So yeah, definitely Howard is the healthier play as well.
Okay. That question hits home for me because I have both in my championship. So looks like I'm
There you
going Howard, boys.
Yes.
All right. Let's see here. All right, who are we on? Ummer. So 3 running backs.
Okay.
We got Mixon, Breda, Ingram, McCoy, Spencer Ware, or John Kelly. Well, Ware is out. I
Yeah.
would definitely not go. All right, let's just this question. Well, okay, I'll let
Yeah,
you.
that's
I
oh
guess
gosh.
I'll just answer it for it. We're gonna go mix him and Ingram. I think out of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah.
Ware's out. Kelly's not gonna play. They picked up C.J. Anderson. Edwards already played. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Let's move on. Sorry, I'm kind of reading these on the fly. So
Yeah, no problem.
okay, here we go. Stick with you, Ummer. Jamal Williams,
Okay.
Damian Williams, or Mark Ingram.
Okay, this is a good question. Standard or PPR?
It doesn't say.
Okay. Um, Based off of PPR, I'd probably go Jamal Williams, Damian Williams, and Mark Ingram. You said?
Correct. One of the
Um,
3.
yeah, PPR. I might go Damian Williams actually because he'll be the running back as well as the pass catching back in that situation, so he'll get heavy involvement in both aspects. So good for PPR. As far as a standard league though, I would probably go Mark Ingram because I think he'll get the red zone touchdowns. I know Damian Williams will also get some touchdowns as well, so he's a good play as well. It's for standard's a little bit tougher for me. Yeah, I think I'd probably still go with Mark Ingram.
Okay. Damian Williams, PPR. Mark Ingram, standard. There you go. Josh, here's a good one. Marlon Mack, Chris Carson, or Jalen Samuels.
Just one
Standard scoring, 1. Yes.
standard scoring. Okay. So standard scoring. I'd probably go Marlon Mack in that scenario. I mean, he can catch passes too, but I expect both Carson and Samuels to be more involved in the passing game than Mack. I mean, they have Naheem Hines over there. So if it's PPR, I'd lean more Samuels, but standard Mack.
Yeah. Here's what you're really going to do is you're going to put Samuels in your tight end spot, and then you're going to start
That's
Marlon Mack.
exactly what you should do.
That's what you're doing.
Yes.
That is what you're doing. Okay. Quarterback question, Ummer. Can I trust Breeze, or should I go with Matt Ryan?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, it's so hard to say don't start Breeze in this situation, but Matt Ryan has a good matchup against the Panthers as well. Honestly, I consider it a push. If you start either option, you should have a good day at the office as far as winning your title this week. So I know it's hard, especially the way Breeze has been playing, but I definitely expect him to have a bounce back game this week against the Steelers. And yeah, Matt Ryan, I expect them to be pass first for sure against the Panthers. So honestly, you can go with either one.
Yeah. I agree. I like Ryan a little better, but yeah, I don't think you're gonna be hurting either way.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. PPR and this is interesting. And point per carry.
Ooh,
So point per
intriguing.
reception and point per carry.
Intriguing.
I don't think I've ever
point per carry. Wow.
I don't think I've ever seen that that setup personally. So
Yeah.
if you're a Zeke owner, you're very happy since he's getting 20 plus carries a game. All right, so point per reception, point per carry, pick 3.
Jeez.
Chris Carson, Jalen Samuels, Nick Chubb, Peyton Barber, Jamal Williams. So 3 out of those 5.
All right. Well, Barber's immediately out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just get him off your roster.
Chubb is immediately in.
Yes.
I want to say Samuels is immediately in. So for me, it comes down to Jamal Williams versus Chris Carson, and that's a tough call. Point per carry. Wow.
Yeah.
Geez,
Oh,
so Derrick Henry had 33 touches yesterday. Sorry, not yesterday, last week. That's 33 points.
yeah.
Just
What
on
the hell?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Just on touches.
This is a tough one. I mean, man, I would really have to dive in here. My gut tells me to go Williams only because there's no Aaron Jones there.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, Carson still does have, they're divvying those touches up. I mean, I expect Carson to be the lead back and get the lion's share of the touches, but they are still going to be divvied up. They will still bring Penny in. And again, because they're playing Kansas City, I expect that they'll eventually have to go away from the run, and they will have to throw the ball to keep up. Whereas Jamal Williams, I think he'll still be involved even when they're in passing situations. So, yeah, I mean, that's a tough call, but I'm going to go Chubb, Samuels, and Jamal Williams.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would go Williams too, just because no Jones. I think he'll get more of the. Man, point per carry. That's kind of fun. That'd be a fun league to just do like on the side. Maybe not as my main league, but just like those games got to be like 280 to like 300.
Oh yeah, very high scoring.
You're getting you're getting 50, 60 points out of your running backs.
And it'd be interesting too on because you definitely want to go running back heavy in that format, but it'd be really interesting how you choose your wide receivers, because then you get those guys like Tyler Lockett that have those end arounds, or DJ Moore who get those sweeps, and all of a sudden they're getting that extra point for a carry that the other receivers aren't getting.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm wondering if because they're getting points per rushing attempt, they're also getting points per receiving target. So then in that case, it both like kind of offsets it, where it's like, you want to get receivers to get a lot of targets as well. So I don't know how this format for this league is. It's very interesting, but yeah, that's just also something to consider as well.
If you have like a Tyreek Hill who's getting 6, 7 catches and also getting two rushes, maybe 3 a game, that's 10, 11 points just off your catches and rushes. That's great.
Exactly.
I saw one while we're on this debate. I saw one league that quarterbacks got a point per completion. So there's weeks when Big Ben was putting up almost 100 points because he had like 30 completions. So
the league, the Dynasty League that I'm actually in my championship game this week, we couldn't decide. So it was a startup, first year Dynasty League. Mm-hmm. So we and most of us don't live together. So we did this all over like Facebook Messenger. We were deciding on all the rules, all people's different input. We couldn't agree on PPR versus non-PPR. So we came to a compromise: half point PPR and a half point per first down.
Okay.
So that's something that's interesting as well. And I think that the consensus was that doesn't really benefit running backs more than receivers. If anything, it might benefit receivers even more because they get, an average target is worth more than an average rush attempt. So that kind of makes it. It still makes it almost full PPR for the receivers, almost.
Yeah.
But it gives a little something to the running backs, when they get a first, when it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1, and they get that 2 yards or that 1 yard, that's worth an extra half point. So some people have complained that PPR really shifts it too much to the receivers.
Yeah, or to the pass catching running backs. Is that first down based on 10 yards, or does it actually track if they got a first down in the game?
No, it's just if they get the first. So if it's 3rd and 1
and they get 1.5 yards, they get a point That's kind
They
of
get
cool.
point, right. They get half a point.
I kind of like that. That's interesting. So
Yeah.
you could have that guy that has 40 yards, but he got 4 first downs, and there you go.
No, and there's lots of offenses that I mean, trying to think back, the Niners when they had Anquan Bolden, he was their third down receiver. So whenever they needed a crucial first down, he was the guy that they went to. So I mean, that adds a little bit more value to certain receivers that are just better in those clutch situations. So yeah, that's a pretty intriguing
Yeah.
scoring setting for
I
sure.
feel like who that would benefit the most? Tight ends, especially some of those
Yeah.
not very good tight ends. Get a few extra points there with those garbage first downs they get fleeing out of the backfield. Okay.
Yeah. I made it to the championship with Kyle Rudolph. So
There you go. There you go. Third down option.
well, I drafted because it's dynasty. I drafted Hunter Henry, knowing that I'll get him next year.
No, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got check down Kyle for now.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're on Josh. Larry Fitzgerald, Robbie Anderson, or Calvin Ridley, PPR. Ugh,
Robbie Anderson.
perfect.
Yeah.
I like him. I like Robbie this week. I think he could be in line for a big week.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Okay, Ummer, standard scoring. This question was obviously asked before last night. So let's go AP, McGuire, or Balaj.
Well, yeah,
Man,
we were not high on AP, so he would have been out even if he was playing today.
must be a deep league.
McGuire and Balaj, that's intriguing to me. McGuire is going to be the starter against the Packers. So is Balaj, but I think unfortunately, if Kenyon Drake unfortunately eats into Balaj's touches, that's the only thing that would throw a wrench into that situation. So in this case, I'd probably lean more on McGuire, but it's more of like a 1-1A sort of situation with McGuire and Balaj. So yeah, I'd probably have to lean on McGuire.
Okay. Let's do two more, one more each, and then we're getting here almost 15 minutes to kickoff. I kind of lost track of time. So, all right, Josh, Edelman versus Buffalo or Baldwin versus KC, PPR.
PPR Edelman for sure. Even without the Gordon situation, I probably would have leaned Edelman just because PPR is his format. But especially after the Josh Gordon news, and they're still fighting. I mean, this could be one of the first times in a while Tom Brady isn't going to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and he wants that. I mean, people don't go in to Foxborough in the playoffs and walk out with a victory, so they really are going to be playing for that home field advantage. Give me Edelman.
There you go. Okay. I'm trying to find a good one for the last one here. All right. Well, this is a tough one. Barn burner here. Ummer, for the last one, would you start? This is PPR. I'm guessing full flex position. Austin Hooper or Adam Humphries?
Oh God. Just because I like the potential a little bit more, I'd probably go with Austin Hooper versus the Panthers compared to Adam Humphries versus the Cowboys.
All right. There you have it. There you have it. Well, good luck to everyone out there. Championship week, if you're in the consolation game or playing for third place, we still wish you luck as well.
Yes.
Maybe you can win your money back if you're in that third place game. So, fellas, it's been a fun season. I know we're gonna podcast throughout the year. We have a lot of fun fantasy content in the pipeline for 2019. But obviously this will be our last probably live stream, or maybe we'll do it next week since you have a week 17 championship. Ummer, weirdo over there, but. For those guys that do that, maybe we'll do a live one then. So, but anyway, appreciate you guys. Good luck to both of you, all three of us. We all three are in one championship, so we'll see how it goes.
Yes.
But yeah, if you haven't already, go check out sportseldente.com. Make sure to subscribe so you can watch us all year long as we do fantasy content, preparing you for next year as well. But good luck this week, gentlemen. Enjoy your Sundays, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, fellas.